Okay, I wanted to come on here today and do a quick hot take about a story that developed really quickly over the past, I would say, week or so. And this involves a case out of Colorado in which a couple had contracted for videography services for a wedding, and a very sad thing happened, and that is the bride passed away in a car wreck uh, months prior to the to the wedding, and so now there seems to be this very strange behavior by the videographer, and not just refusing to hand back money, but going on some type of weird campaign to defend himself or herself. Not really sure. So, what are the ramifications if a client passes away? How can you handle it better than this particular videographer? That's basically what we're going to be talking about on today's hot take. So, what we have here is a gentleman named Justin Montney, and his unfortunately the woman that he was going to marry, Alexis Wyatt. They contracted for a videographer service called Copper Stallion Media. Copper Stallion Media, apparently based out of Texas, and I'll have links in the description to the news articles where I'm getting this from. So they contracted for videography services for a wedding to take place on May 23rd. Again, tragically, Alexis passed away in February from a car wreck. At that point in time, Alexis and Justin had already paid to the videographer Copper Stallion Media. I keep wanting to say Copper Medallion. Copper Stallion Media. They paid to him or her $1,800, $1,800 as a non-refundable retainer deposit. I'm not quite sure. I don't have the contract language. I'm just rereading this from the websites. So, after the tragic passing of the bride to be, the client Justin goes to the videographer, says, "Can I have my money back?" Obviously, this is not a good situation. XYZ, and I don't want to get too much into this because I'm not quite sure what's being reported on what I would call reputable news sites is a little bit different than news sites that are more like, I don't know, I don't want to defame anybody, but like I don't know what's being accurately reported, what's not accurately being reported, but what's the same on all accounts is not only did the Copper Stallion Media refuse, but were very outrageous in their behavior towards this guy. So apparently, they posted something on their website about how Justin was actually threatening them to go online and ruin their reputation and whatnot. And it's a terrible situation. And now, strangely, and this is where I don't want to report something that's inaccurate, but I'm not saying that Copper Stallion Media has done this, although it's being reported that they have. I'm not saying that at all. But now there exists a website in the client's name. So justinmontney.com has been purchased and now appears to be providing arguments in favor of Copper Stallion Media. So all of there's allegedly the back and forth between Copper Stallion Media and Justin Montney regarding the refund of this are up on this website, justinmontney.com, which appears by most accounts to be operating as operated by Copper Stallion Media, although I cannot confirm that. I mean, anybody can buy a website. Anybody can put anything up on the internet. So I'm not going to attribute that website to this company, but many people are. I don't know, but it's super strange. It's a terrible situation when you have a young person who's had their life taken, and now you have all this garbage out there. It's super strange. Check it out. The links in the description. I'll put the weird website that's now in this guy's name. Anyway, this website is seems to be from the point of view of Copper Stallion Media. They're putting out all this stuff, it's a super strange and bizarre situation. So there's a couple of takeaways on this hot take for you as a wedding professional. Number one, if your client tragically passes away, all bets are off. We'll get to the legal in a second, but all bets are off. In terms of customer relations, I mean, no one would wish that on their own worst enemy. So do what you can to make that situation right with the aggrieved or the grieving couple or the spouse, whoever the soon-to-be spouse. I mean, whatever you can do. Oh my gosh, send flowers? It's terrible. Chalk that up as a loss, okay? Chalk that up as a loss. Typically, that's not going to happen very often. Maybe once in your career, you might have somebody pass away. I've only had that happen maybe once in my 10, 12 years of doing this, to have a client pass away. So from a business standpoint, from a moral standpoint, from a human to human standpoint, don't be petty. Okay, so that's the hot take from this. But what's the legal ramifications? What are the obligations of the parties if someone dies? If the client passes away, what are you obligated to do under the law? So this will definitely vary from state to state, but the default rule is that for contracts is that the show goes on. So if money is owed, it continues to be owed. If services are to be provided, it should be provided. That's the default rule. Within that kind of amorphous rule, there is an exception that has been cut out for what we would call personal service contracts. So this would be like if you've hired Mariah Carey, and I don't know if I want to use somebody specific because I don't want to, I'm gonna knock on wood. My desk is wood. But like you've hired Mariah Carey to sing the national anthem. No one is going to sing the national anthem like Mariah Carey. So if she passes away, she's not, I hope she's alive and well. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Salt over the shoulder, whatever. Best wishes to Mariah Carey. She passes away, no one else is going to sing that. You have contracted for a national anthem by Mariah Carey. Okay? No one else can do it that way. That's kind of the thought. Like, what's the discretion that the party has? That type of thing that will make it a personal versus impersonal. So, impersonal contracts would be something like if you're buying a house. Okay? In the past, some shareholder agreements are impersonal, meaning, are we going to go to the executor of the estate or the administrator of an estate and force somebody to go through with this contract, even though they have died? And again, the default rule is yes, unless it's a personal services contract. And personal services contract, like the Mariah Carey example, is one in which the parties. It's undeniable that the parties have wanted this particular person to go through with the obligations or to receive the benefits, not someone else. In other words, it's not like widgets. Like, if the guy that I contracted with for my cell phone dies, and again, knock on wood, I'm still wanting the contract to go forward because it's not just him, it's 1,000 other people that are, in charge of whether or not I get cell phone service. So that's kind of the idea. Personal or impersonal contracts, personal services contracts typically terminate upon the death of the person, the party, if it's a personal services contract. And what I mean by that is the duties discharge, kind of like a force majeure event. The person is not obligated to perform anymore. You can't sue somebody for breach of contract if they don't show up and sing at your wedding because they're dead. Okay? That's from the vendor side. So I kind of got lost in that point. But on the vendor side, most of the time, your contracts are going to be personal services. Okay, you're the one that's lugging the camera equipment to the event. You're the one that's doing the planning, the coordinating. It's not like you've got 1,000 employees. You're an indispensable party to that contract with the client. Okay, so for the most part, personal service wedding business contracts are probably going to be considered personal contracts that terminate upon the death of the vendor. Now, what about with the client? I would argue that it's the same principle, maybe even more. Okay, because it's not as though if the one of the people die, one of the couple dies, that you're just going to fill in somebody else, and they get and the original signer gets married to somebody else. That's not how it works. They're not widgets. Just like they're not widgets on your side for the most part, they're not going to be widgets on the other side. So typically, if the contract, if the client passes away in a typical wedding business contract, like in this case, it's going to discharge everybody's duties moving forward. And in this instance, it's possible that depending on the amount of work that the videographer done, they could hang on to stuff. But just because that contract says non-refundable on it does not necessarily mean that it actually is when you're dealing with the death of a party that is separate and apart. And I've had, if you want to go check out my podcast or my YouTube videos on liquidated damages or non-refundable retainers, deposits, you can feel free to go there. I won't get into it here on this hot take, but the idea of the money being non-refundable in the instance of the clients just not wanting to be married versus the clients die, it's a completely different ballgame. And it doesn't necessarily make it so. It doesn't necessarily make it non-refundable. So at the end of the day, in this instance, that's typically the duties between the parties if somebody dies. But with this particular story, holy cow, if it's true, what an a-hole, okay? But I've read some stories, if they're true, that this person has been in trouble in the past. So if that's true, then I don't know. All bets are off. Maybe the couple should have done their research on this guy. But anyway, that's my hot take on the Copper Stallion Media trying to get money back because your fiance has passed away in this tragic accident. And that's typically what's going to be the status of the parties going forward with the death. So anyway, all right. Hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.